The business case for gender equity in our workplace at Maroomba Airlines is really around solving the airline's biggest problems. Like for me as a leader, I fundamentally believe that problems must be solved by looking at it from all angles, not just through a sort of a myopic lens. If you're looking at a problem down the tunnel of a cardboard tube, you're going to see the problem at the other end, and you're going to solve the problem with your corrective and preventative actions that align to what you can see. So what we're trying to do is build an organisation where we've got people sitting on top of the tube, below the tube, either side of the tube, looking at the same problem, from many angles, and then creating solutions and preventative actions that actually solve the problem once and for all. First step was, I think, coming into the organisation. I'm the first female CEO that Maroomba Airlines has ever had, so that has been a big step for the board, and I'm grateful for their foresight. We've got a board that is 50% female, 50% male, so that is quite unusual as well in the aviation space. Trying to lead from the top there, so I'm following the lead of the board. If we look at aviation as an industry, we're one of the top 3 worst performing industries in the entire country. We've got one of the biggest gender pay gaps in the top 3 worst performing, so I think it's sitting at 31.3% for aviation space, and I can say that Maroomba Airlines was sitting very close to that average when we started. So one of the missions when I started was, what are we going to do about that? But not in a superficial way that's lip service and serving pink cupcakes once a year, but it's about how do we actually weave this into our strategy so it's a sustainable growth model. That we just have an organisation that represents the communities that we work in. Like, it's really not that difficult. The 3 top actions that have had the most impact, we've got quite a few stories there which are excellent, and we're very early on our journey. We had our HR team and some of the admin team go through a gender equity training program in regards to recruitment through yourselves, and that's been fantastic. So I thought, we're just changing a few words in our ads, that's great, we're looking like we're aligning to where we should be as an organisation. But the impact of that has absolutely astounded me. So to give you a specific example, we had a cabin crew ad out recently, and this is the first ad that we've done where we've actually changed the language and weaved in the techniques that the team have learnt. And what we found is that we've had double the applicants. We've had to turn the ad off for the first time since I've worked here because we had too many. So that is a massive shift, and I'm really genuinely surprised that changing the language to be more aligned with the broader community is attracting top talent. Number 2 would be around my own understanding of the gender pay gap. When I came into the industry, I'm like, yeah, gender pay gap, get it, yep. And I was looking quickly, we pay boys the same as girls, yep, got it, fine, that's fine. But it's not actually about that. So I think my very first session with CEOs for gender equity was a session on that. And I had my notepad out. I was like, everything I believed was not actually fact. So that was a big wake-up call for me. And I deeply understand that now, and committed to trying to drive the aviation industry forward, not just Maroomba Airlines in that space. And the third one I'd say is great example where we've had a cabin crew member who's had a beautiful little boy recently. And what I didn't realise coming into the aviation industry is that people who are working in the flight operations team, so we've got pilots and cabin crew predominantly, need to stop flying at a certain gestation. And we all know that, but I hadn't really thought about what impact that would have on people working in that industry. So we had somebody who was pregnant, and at a certain point of that journey for her, you typically have to stop work, and her work is flying. That's what she does. She's made a career out of that, and she's excellent at it. So instead of starting her parental leave early, we've offered her an alternative. Would you like to come and do some administrative work to try and improve the cabin crew area, write some policies, and improve her uniforms, and a lot of projects that she was really passionate about. And we've had to support her obviously transitioning from the role to develop new skills using computers and office-based working environment, because if you haven't done it before, then how would you know? So we've done that, and she was able to work right up until basically full term. And she's gone off and she's having a lovely time with the little boy, and she hasn't chewed up sort of those 8 to 10 weeks of parental leave with no income. What's had the least impact, and this is not just at Maroomba Airlines, but what I've found in my career is just the one-off events. Like I referenced before, having pink cupcakes once a year. While we all love cupcakes, it's tokenary, and if we don't change the behaviours around the organisation of actually, let's use the cupcake analogy, who's putting the cupcakes out, who's buying them, who's ordering them, who's cleaning up afterwards. And look, every organisation is going to be different, but if we kind of step back and have a look at those observations, we haven't changed it by putting out the cupcakes. So I think that it's really just about those one-off tokenary lip service things, but are we walking the walk, and are we committed to making the changes that we need to make? And are we prepared to look in the mirror? Because it's really uncomfortable sometimes to look in the mirror, and we don't like what we see as an organisation. But once we know, then we have an obligation to change. So what's changed for us over the last year has been our retention. So we have had vastly improved retention. When I started at the organisation, one of the messages I was hearing was people come and join us at the beginning of their career and they come back to us at the end of their career. But we often lose them to the larger airlines during that middle piece because people want to go and chase career development, further opportunities. But we've actually seen a lot of that decrease, and we've got people now throughout the business, by creating internal opportunities that are attractive to everybody, that people are actually staying with us. We've got people moving from cabin crew into the grounds team. We've got grounds team moving into the pilots. It's very exciting. So people can see a full career here. So that's been a big shift. The other thing I would say is our employee perception survey results have significantly improved. So we're actually sitting at a 4-star with 75% participation of that survey for the first time in the organisation's history. And sure, there's a lot of contributing factors to that, but creating a workplace where everybody feels like they belong, which is really our mission, has helped us get there. Other CEOs should join because you've got the peer network that you don't have access to. And I think really to drive change, you need to have a bit of a think tank of people who are like-minded trying to deliver on the same mission. So going there, I've learned a lot. Like I said before, I went in thinking the gender pay gap meant one thing, and I certainly know now that it's something else. I've learned so many skills. Every session I come back with something and I'm like, wow, it's just blown my mind, and I'm a female leader. So, and I'm learning things about myself and my team that I didn't understand, which is fantastic. But the network has been amazing. I've met so many people that I never would have met, and we're all trying to deliver on the same mission. It's really empowering because when you come back to your organisation, and this is not Maroomba Airlines specific, you're up against it. You're driving change that a lot of people are resisting. And to go and be energised by a group of people that say, yeah, me too, I get it, and this is how I've tackled it, or even just to have that support that that on the other side of this hump that you're working through at the moment, there's a greener pasture, it gives you hope and inspires you and keeps you energised to keep going. CGE has impacted our business in so many ways. I think it's just starting to shift the mindsets, particularly of people who've never thought this way before. So it is uncomfortable for some people to be talking about things that we haven't, but there's a general curiosity across the business, and it takes time to see results. And I think the really cool thing about now is sort of just over a year into our journey, people are starting to see the results, like this cabin crew recruitment strategy that we've attempted. They're seeing the results, like the gender pay gap starting to close. They're starting to see the results, and just really the understanding that belonging and inclusion are quite different things to diversity. So we can hire people, but can we retain them? Have we made a place where everybody feels like they belong and they have a place for them? The analogy that we always hear about diversity is being invited to the dance, but inclusion is actually being invited to the dance floor to dance. And there's a big distinction there, and I think we're still on a journey, but I think people are starting to get it. So the impact of that, obviously, we know that the top performing organisations have gender diverse executive teams, and they typically have a 25% higher revenue. So that's not what we're targeting here, but we just know that solving the world's biggest problems by bringing diversity and inclusion into the organisation is going to result in more operationally efficient and effective businesses. I think it's pretty simple.